Are you interested in making this crown? Then stay tuned to learn how with me, Happy Maid. Your supplies will be bolt cutters, 12 through 8 gauge round half-hard copper wire, round nose pliers, a metal wire file, and a loop maker. So first you see I have my heavy gauge copper wire. I believe it's about 12 gauge. Next you see me grabbing heavy duty bolt cutters. You can find these in Home Depot, any hardware store. Next you see me grabbing a pair of small round nose pliers, hence the round of the tip of the plier. Now you see me grabbing a metal file with both a lighter filing edge and a heavier filing edge. And I'll show you how I use that later on in the video. Next you see me grabbing a bracelet or loop maker is what I believe this is called. I'm not 100% sure, but if you see it has that curve at the top, that's what helps bends the wire without making a mark on it. So now what you see me doing is just pulling out a nice little bit of wire. I didn't measure an exact amount, but I would say for the crown that we're going to be making, a good 14 inches is enough to get started. Anything less than that, you're going to have some difficulty. So again, 14 inches to get started. So you want to cut it with your bolt cutters, then set the excess wire to the side. Now what you see me doing, and I'm going to be pulling back in a second, is taking the tips of the wire and trying to join the edges of the wire without completely bending it. And so you want to have a huge teardrop. And as you see, I'm going to pull back now so you can see this huge teardrop I'm working with. So then once you have your huge teardrop, you're going to take and just manipulating the ends, you're going to start to pull them opposite of each other and continue the teardrop. Doing it this way is what helps form that perfect teardrop center in the middle, which is what we want. So if you see, I pulled it just by the ends all the way down to where I thought the teardrop was a good size, and then that's where I left it. If you keep pulling, it gets smaller. If you don't, it stays bigger. But keep in mind, we're going to be hammering this, so you want to kind of have an idea of where you want it ahead of time. So now we're going to go ahead to the next one. I'm going to hold that tip of the wire and that tip of the first loop, and I'm just looping it around. With the second loop, it gets a little more complicated because by now the wire is a little hardened. So you just want to make the loop as best as you can, and I always do the same, the opposite of that side immediately, just so I can make sure that my hands and my form and everything are matching up so that the loops match up. So you see me doing the other side now, the other loop in the same process, and now I'm going to be fixing this hot mess you see in front of you by sight. So now I feel like they're nice, evenly spaced, all three loops. We're going to go ahead and proceed to straightening out the ends and doing the next loop. And so we're just continuing the same process. I'm going to grab the end, I'm going to hold the base of the last loop, and I'm going to bend around trying to hold whatever shape that loop turns into and trying to maneuver it as best as I can into place without losing as much of that teardrop as I can. I'm going to go ahead and take and form the size of the crown. So we'll get to that in a second. So now to make the crown base, yes, I am using a paint can, my metallic gold paint that I use on all my projects. It works like a charm. So now to make it into a crown, you're going to wrap the long pieces around the paint can. There's a way to make it as a crown and a way to make it sit like a headband. To sit like a headband, you're going to do it that way. To sit like a crown, you're going to do it this way, sitting right up. This way is a headband right now, facing that way. This way right now is a crown, and that's the way I'm going to do it for the purposes of this video. If you want to see me make it into a headband, that can be another video in the future. But all you want to really do is take it, push down the wires as much as you feel the crown should sit up. So right now I'm just pushing down the wire to where I feel is a good spot for the crown to sit up height-wise in my large afro. And then once I pushed it down to a good height, that's when I'm going to begin trying to hold as much of the wire as I can and create the circle. So you see me holding the front of the crown and wrapping the tails around the paint can. It's as simple as that. So now you'll see me do the other side. And there you have it. Now we have the basic structure of the crown done. It's been wire wrapped, and the basic structure of how it's going to sit on your head is done. So now the next part is to hammer. See you in a second. Now we have our wire wrapped crown, and we've taken it over to our bench block, which I admit could be a lot bigger, but it is a small stainless steel anvil, rubber pallet for noise insulation, and a sandbag for noise insulation on a large piece of wood. So I'm going to take my crown, place it face side down, and begin hammering on the back side. I'm hammering on the back to ensure that if any scratches are made during the hammering process, that you won't see it on the front of the crown. So I'm just going to take my hammer and slowly go all the way around the first loop, hammering to ensure that I'm getting a nice, clean, and even finish all the way around. As you see, my anvil slipping, hence I need a bigger one. But as you can see now, and here's a close-up, there's a nice, smooth, even, flat finish that's what we're creating by hammering this crown. So you want to go ahead and go all the way around the crown doing the same process, alternating sides to ensure that it's even. While you're doing this, you also want to make sure that you're constantly checking the wire, because it will be moving until you hammer it. So the more you hammer it, the harder the wire gets, hence the purpose of hammering the wire. So once you feel that you've hammered all the loops, they've gotten a nice even finish, as you can see here. You can go ahead, give it a good check, make sure that everything is lined up the way you want, make sure that it's spaced out the way you want, because once you hammer it and you give it a good hammer, it's not going to move. Here you see me moving the wire out of the way just so I can make sure I can get to the smaller circles. So if the wire or the tail's in your way, just simply move it out of your way, because you can always put it back into place later on down the line, because you want to make sure again that you're hammering all of the circles, that they stay in place. So now that you see we have all of our top loops hammered, we're going to go ahead and hammer the inside or the bottom in between of the loops to make sure that they stay in place. So when you're adjusting your crown, it doesn't move around a whole lot. So you want to go ahead and try to hammer as hard as you can in between the loops, but try not to hammer directly on the line where the wire crosses, because if you continue to do that over time, that wire will tend to break. So you want to just try to continue hammering in between the loops, and then as you see, the wire is going to bend when you do so. So you just want to go ahead and take some flat nose pliers like I did, and I'm sorry I didn't show that in the beginning of the video, to adjust the wire and then continue hammering in between the loops like you see me doing here. So now it looks like the top part of our crown is done. We've hammered both the loops and the wire in between the loops. We've adjusted it to where we think it looks great, so we're going to move on to hammering the tail of the crown. So in order to hammer our crown / headband, we're going to focus on the inside of the crowns. This is so, and if we have any scratches or any problems that come up during the hammering process, again, it will be hidden from sight because it will be on the inside. So you want to hammer, make sure you adjust the wire because it will bend as you're hammering around, and then just continue to hammer around and check for consistency. So what you see me doing here is, again, adjusting the wire because during the hammering process it got really out of whack. So I'm just taking my large flat nose pliers and slowly bending the wire in the direction I want it to go. I'm doing this bend slowly because if I was to do it very fast, it would leave permanent dents in the wire that I don't want. So that's where these wire benders come in, because now I want to begin forming this shape of the circle. So I'm using these and just using them lightly, because if I was to use a full bend, it would pretty much make it into a bracelet, and nobody's head's that small. So just lightly bend it into the shape, or use your paint can. So now you see me adjusting the crown, seeing how I want it to look on my head once it's put in the shape. So what I'm doing now is seeing how high I want it to sit before I grab my paint can, which you'll see me do in a second. This is typically how I wear my hair, so I'm like, okay, if this is how high I want it to be, I need to see how high I need to make it on my paint can. So I'm going to take my paint can, I'm going to put the front of the crown again on the paint can like so, and while I'm holding the front, I'm going to try as strong as I can, as you see my hands flexing, to wrap the wire around. And it's going to be a little difficult again now because we've hammered the wire, so now it's stiffened. So try to get a good wrap around, and then you can adjust. So now that you've adjusted the wires the way you think they need to be, we're going to go ahead and focus on the ends of the tails. This is how far around your head you want the crown to go. So mine's are a little long after I see that I've hammered them. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them down a bit with my bolt cutters. Now it's going to be a little difficult cutting them now because you've hammered the wire, which means you stiffened it. So the further back into the bolt cutters you put the wire, the easier it will be to cut the wire. So try to push the wire back as far as you can into the bolt cutters and give it a good cut. And then just throw the excess wire in the trash or your scrap bin. Now grab your metal file, and using the heavier file, you want to go ahead and just give both ends a good filing. While filing the metal, you want to try to hold the metal file at a 90-degree angle to ensure that you're getting the ends of the metal that's going to scratch you. So all you see me doing here is just filing and checking with my fingers and filing. And once I did a good round, as you see me checking, and you can see that's a jagged edge, so I'm going to file that with the heavier metal, and then I'm going to move on to the lighter end, just like you do with your fingernails. It's the same concept. Now that I feel both ends have been filed well and there are not going to be any issues with scratches, I'm going to go ahead and start doing the final adjustments for the crown. So taking my loop maker and my paint can, I'm going to begin just trying to get a good, I guess whatever you would call it, measurement or circumference for the circle. Now I know no one's head is this small, but the paint can helps because it gives it the basic shape, and then I just expand out from here. So that's all you're going to be seeing me doing. It's just using the paint can and my hands and the loop maker and just doing the various adjustments of the wire that I need for the final look of the crown. I felt the tail of the crown was too long, so what you see here is the final look of the crown after I went ahead and cut down the tails again a second time and then filed them again. So what you see again here is the final look after a second cutting. And there you have it. You have a one-of-a-kind handmade crown/headband that fits perfectly, especially if you have a wonderfully large afro like me. So now when you're looking for a perfect accessory to help make you feel a little more confident, or when you're dealing with haters or people with negativity and you just need a physical reminder of the queen that you are, you can fluff out your afro and your curls with pride, put in your crown or headpiece or whatever you like to call it, and go out and face the world and say, yes, I am the queen that I am supposed to be. So Look at how I fluff it out. There's multiple ways you can do it. So thank you for watching this video and take care. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Click the subscribe button below. Bye. Mwah.